Yes, I salute you all. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. By name, I'm Simon Peter Matalo, and basically today we are looking at constitutional history. And the constitutional history, basically, we are going to look at the 1900 Buganda Agreement. Basically, many historians say that it was one of the first constitutional documents that were signed or that were brought in Uganda, basically. And I urge you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Comment where you feel that you are agreeing about it, but so that we can mitigate and understand very easily. So when you look at the 1900 Buganda Agreement, realize that by the time these white people or the English people entered in Uganda, realize that they wanted to alliance with the natives, basically. And the only means that they could alliance with the natives was making an agreement, signing an agreement, the terms, as we shall see that we are speculated in the 1900 Buganda Agreement. So, historically, basically, this 1900 Buganda Agreement was signed on the 10th March 1900. That's when the agreement was signed. And it was signed between Sir Harry Johnston, that was the representative of the chief commander of the protectorate. Actually, he acted on the orders of Her Majesty, who was in England. That's Sir Harry Johnston. And this Sir Harry Johnston, remember by that time, we had Daudi Chwa. We had Daudi Chwa, the second. But however, when you realize that Daudi Chwa was still young, basically, and he couldn't sign on by his own, so he had the regents. These regents were three. The regents. We had Apollo Kagwa, we had Stanlas Mugwanya, and Noah Mbogo. Those are the regents that signed on behalf of Daudi Chwa, who was still an infant king by then. You get. But however, we are going to look at some of the articles in the 1900 constitutional document. But nevertheless, for us, what we shall appreciate is that we are going to look at the terms and the articles that are invested in the agreement to show that how did it impact. However, when you analyze this agreement, it did more harm than good to the natives. You get. This agreement was only favoring the white man or the protectorate itself, but it didn't favor neither the king nor the natives of the region. So basically, I have a formula here, a formula that says that desire, come, establish, reports, and remove Namasore's mother, and mostly laws to matters regarding Dennis for Rita's love, basically. That's the good formula that talks about all the articles in the 1900 Buganda Agreement, basically. And we are going to discuss article by article. Remember this constitutional document, the major emphasis as a legal scholar, you must be knowing its consequences to the constitutional development in Uganda, basically. But however, we shall look at that topic some other day, basically. This agreement, its impact on the constitutional development, you get, or its contribution to the constitutional development. But as per now, we are going to look at the articles, basically, its influence. Basically, we shall start with desire, which is Article 1. Article 1 talks about demarcation of boundaries. Basically, Article 1 of the Constitution talks about demarcation of boundaries. In this essence, we realize that the demarcation of boundary was supposed to be done on counties, territories, to show that Buganda could pass there and Buganda had its jurisdiction. It implied the jurisdiction of the of the kingdom and the counties within the kingdom. That was the demarcation of of boundaries. Then when you go to Article 2, which has the word come, is the collection of tribute. What do we mean by collection of tribute? Remember before, it was the kingdom of Uganda to collect tribute. But nevertheless, when these people signed the agreement, they made an agreement that Buganda won't again collect tribute from other territories. But however, the role was invested, or it was to be put to the protectorate itself to collect tribute from other regions. Then Article 3 talks about, which is the word establish, talks about equality. Here, basically, Article 3 talked about equality, whereby they said that the kingdom of Uganda was equal to other provinces. Basically, it reduced powers of the kingdom of Uganda. Remember, sometime back, Buganda was the superior region in the area. So, but out of the agreement, or out of the agreement, realized that Buganda lost that power, the overall power to other what? To other kingdoms. Then we also have Article 4, which has the word reports. Article 4 talks about the revenue, you get. And when you realize that the collection of revenue, or the revenue that was supposed to be collected, here there was a clause that all revenues that were collected within the kingdom, the chiefs that collected revenue were supposed to report. Basically, they were supposed to report to the protectorate. The protectorate was the one that was accountable to the revenue that was being collected in the what? The area. Unlike the way back whereby Uganda was the sole collector of the revenue within the what? Within the area or within the province. That is Article 4. Then when we go to Article 5, which has the word and in it, and Article 5. Article 5 talks about the applicability of laws of the protectorate. Here, this clause implied that laws of the protectorate were supposed to be applicable in Uganda if they were not inconsistent with the agreement. Okay, this clause actually it was just backsliding the natives. Because basically, if all clauses were favoring the British people, which means here all laws of the protectorate were applicable, but they said that they were applicable unless they don't conflict the what? The 1900 Buganda Agreement clauses, basically. Then when you go to Article 6, which has the word remove. Article 6 talks about the recognition of Kabaka. This is some of the crucial the crucial articles in the 1900. And this one, it did more harm than good. Here it speculated that the Kabaka would be recognized as a native ruler once he could obey to the laws of the what? Of the protectorate, or abide by the principles of the protectorate, basically. Failure to do so, he would fail to be recognized as a native ruler, as we shall see in the 1953 Kabaka crisis. This was the implication. The implication of this clause came in 1953, the Kabaka crisis, as we shall see. So basically, the colony called for that, basically. It had some implications. This clause, basically, the Kabaka was to be paid something that was undermining his capacity in the kingdom, was to be paid, basically. And how could you pay Kabaka yet is the Kabaka? You get? So basically, that's the clause. It has more influence on it. And we have Article 7. Article 7, in our sentence, it is Namasoles. And here it calls that the Namasole was to be paid 50 British pounds a year, basically. That is the Namasole, was to be paid 50 British pounds a year. Basically, the Namasole was the mother to the what? To the king. Again, that was under Article 7. Then when you go to Article 8, which is mother in our sentence, Article 6 talks about the mixed nature cases. Yeah, basically what you have to know, any cases of mixed nature, we are supposed to be taken to the British courts. You understand? Any cases, mixed nature, basically they mean that if a native had wrangles with what? With the Briton, basically, with the white man, that is the mixed nature case. It was only referred to the British courts, not the Ruchiko, which was the native court. You get? So basically they were like saying that a white man cannot argue with the native in a native court, basically. So that is Article 8. Then when you go to Article 9, which is earned in our sentence, talks about the administrative units. Administrative units, they say that there has to be administrative units, and they were supposed to be 20 in number, these administrative units. Each administrative unit had to have a leader. You get, basically, I can say we are like the chiefs of each. But however, these chiefs were appointed by the Kabaka, but on approval of the what? Of the protectorate, basically. In case someone was not wanted by the protectorate, they could deny his appointment, basically. That is Article 9. Then when you go to Article 10, in our sentences, it is mother. sorry, it is mostly, Article 10, it is mostly ministers, talks about the appointment of ministers in the kingdom. The protectorate made this argument that there has to be only 3 ministers. That is the prime minister, the chief judge, and the treasurer. Those are the 3 ministers that were mandated by the Kabaka to appoint. 3, of which they are supposed to be paid 300 British pounds. The 300 British what? Pounds, basically. And these 300 British pounds were paid per year. Basically, not that in mind. You get. Then when you go to Article 11, in our sense it is laws. Article 11 talks about the Luchiko. They made an argument that there should be a Luchiko, which acted as a native council, basically. And this Luchiko was to be governed by the native people, basically. This is the only article that at least favored the native or the black people or the Buganda people. Basically, the formulation of the Luchiko under Article 11, basically. And when you go to Article 12, in our word, it has 2. Talks about taxation. Basically, taxation was introduced as a result. They brought the hat tax and the gun tax. You get. The hat tax, basically, you could pay 3 rupees. That is the tax, 3 rupees or 4 shillings a year. Meanwhile, even the gun tax, it was 3 rupees and 4 shillings a year, basically, under taxation, that taxation clause. But however, there are certain people that were exempted from giving taxes. You get, for example, if these white people came, or the white man when they came, realized that they connived with a fellow Africans, and of which these fellow Africans are the ones that they enjoyed that privilege. Understand? So if you connive with someone in power, obviously you have to enjoy the privileges, basically. Just as it is even currently today. The people that are conniving with the government, they are busy enjoying privileges there. So basically, when you go to Article 13, in our sentence it is matters, and basically it calls about military service. Basically here, there was a clause that the Buganda people, or the people of the Kabaka, had to serve in the army in case they are called upon, basically. So here it calls that it was mandatory. You understand? And remember that here, because you realize that we the Africans are the ones that had manpower, unlike the white man. You get? So they called for military service in case of need. Then we have Article 14. In our sentence, it is regarding, it calls for road maintenance. Road maintenance was mandatory. As earlier I told you that for us, we are the people that had manpower. So it was a clause that called that these Africans or the native had to give that service to maintain roads in the kingdom, basically. You get? Then when you go to Article 15, this is the article that you must be knowing. Article 6 and Article 15. These are the crucial articles that later even impacted some constitutional events to come. Talks, in our sense, it is Dennis, talks about the distribution of land. Remember, land was divided. You get? Land was divided into 2. The Milo land and the Crown land, basically. The Milo land was given to the king or the Kabaka, and the Crown land was given to the protectorate. What do I mean here? Milo land, that's the land was enjoyed by the Chief C, Nyamasole, among others. Because when you read in details, each person was given square miles. His land was given in what? In square miles. Then the Crown land, that was the land that was enjoyed. And the Crown land, it was the land that was a bit larger than the Milo land. Because realize that the kingdom of Uganda is the only in the central region. Take for instance, the central region, basically, even some parts were exempted, was the only Milo land. Then the rest of Uganda was regarded as Crown land. You get, which later in the 1902 Order in Council was declared as public what? Land, as we shall see. And basically what you have to know, this distribution of land later led to other grievances. For example, the Bataka peasant grievances. They also came as issue of this land. Up to date, still we are still on the repercussion of the distribution of land. This clause is still bringing repercussion even up to date. That's why you hear the Baganda say that Twagala Byafe. All came under this clause that was signed in the 1900 Uganda Agreement. Then we have from section, we have section 17, 16 to 7, article 16 to 17. In the word it has for cause for forest regulation. Basically, since these white people came, so the maintenance of nature through the forest regulation was upon the natives, basically. They called for the Kabaka, you understand, for the Kabaka to maintain forests with his what? Natives, basically. Then when you go to, there is here, basically I've forgotten, but under Article 18, talks about compensation of the 1,050 square miles of the Crown land. You get, that is Article 18 of the 1900 Buganda Agreement. Talks about the compensation, the trust compensation of the Crown what? The Crown land. Then when you go to 19 to 20, the sentence it has Rita. And basically Rita, it is the revocation of the agreement. Basically here what you have to know, these white people were a bit bright more than us, because by that time we were illiterate. So they said that in case this charter is violated or this agreement is violated, it shall be revoked. Just as we saw in the 1953. You get where Cohen came. This charter was revoked. Reason being that the Kabaka had violated Article 6. You understand? So basically, it calls for the revocation of the agreement in case of breach of any of the articles or clauses or the terms in the agreement. Then we have the last one, which is Article 21. In our word, it is love. You get Article 21, this one calls that this document shall be written in two languages. That is English and Luganda. But however, this white people said that the English, the one in English it will be the one that will be what? Considered. Actually, they were like in disrespect. They took advantage of our naivety. You understand? Because if 98% of the Buganda people, these likes of Stanislas Mugwanya, Apollo Kagwambo, Noah Mbogo, actually I doubt even whether they were educated basically. Maybe they rubbed them with cassava, something like that, as you know. Because for them, how can you consider that the document shall be considered in English? Yet even them, they could only maybe utter sounds, but not letters, basically. So the English document was the only one to be considered. And even me, as I'm discussing, even I'm doubting if these are the clauses that they really signed, because it was the English language that was to be what? Considered. But nevertheless, that is history. You understand? And the repercussions are still what? Haunting us as Uganda at what? At large. But we shall see its contribution to the constitutional development in Uganda, basically. But other than that, thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Put a comment there and we see what we can do